Peter Mills, can you tell us how you first came to be a scriptwriter for Coronation Street?
I was writing for a soap, probably the best one that's ever been made, by Granada, as it happens, and it was called Spring Hill. It was set in Liverpool, and it was very esoteric, and it was breaking the bounds of soap, bringing people back from the dead and all kinds of really amazing things like that. And it was made for Channel 4. And unfortunately, after one season, Channel 4 didn't really like it. It was a bit too avant-garde, maybe, I don't know. So it didn't go very far. Anyway, because it was made by Granada, Granada quite liked the stuff that I was doing for it. So they invited me up to Manchester to have a meeting about potentially writing Coronation Street, which was a bit of a problem for me because I'd never seen it before in my life. So obviously I had to do a bit of research, and fortunately an aunt of mine was an absolutely avid fan, so I literally spent the entire weekend on the phone to her as she filled me in about all the characters and the backgrounds and the stories and so on and so forth. And so then I went up to Manchester sounding like an expert, and they gave me a trial script to do for them, which is what usually happens with programs. So I did it, they liked it, and I got the gig and ended up 6 very happy years.
And the first ever episode that you did, what was that episode? What year and what was that episode about?
Oh, blimey. I would say it's probably about 1986, I would think. I haven't got a clue what the episode was about. At that stage, I would have been joining in the episodic guidelines, so I would have just been kind of fitting into the whole the existing storylines, if you like. It was some time before I actually felt bold enough to put my own stories through. But the first episode, that's a very good question. Can't remember.
Okay. And was there any particular characters you really enjoyed writing for?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I became known, I think, for Roy and Hayley. So I was involved in the very early stages of their romance, and wrote the episodes where they went off to Amsterdam and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, definitely Roy and Hayley.
Because that would have been seen as groundbreaking at the time. Would that be right?
It was. It was. She was the first transgender character on any kind of soap. So it was totally. It's very good. I mean, they were great actors. Great. They were fabulous to write for. Really, really good. They were very dependable. The problem when you're a scriptwriter is that you can write lines, but you never know what actors are going to do with them. But Roy and Hayley were always absolutely dependable, and they always delivered the lines exactly as I had them in my head, and they were great. Yeah, very good, very good.
Because
when I left, actually, I got really nice emails and letters from David Nielsen, who plays Roy, saying that she was going to miss me and how much he'd enjoyed working with me. Yeah.
And yes, I'm just looking up at David Nielsen. He really carved out a character there, didn't he? When Roy Cropper began, I think as a tenant in a lodging house. But did you really enjoy the way he was carved? When your words, he was carving out that character as well, like a symbiosis.
Yeah, but I mean, when by the time I got on the show, he was established a little bit more than as this, that quaint, slightly quirky character, and with not very good social manners, and So by then he was a bit more of an established character, so he was actually quite easy to pick up from. But the challenge was how to actually make somebody who's very awkward with women actually flourish, and then the irony being that the woman he was doing with wasn't really born a woman anyway. So I mean, the whole thing was, really, really interesting.
And how long did it take for you from knowing that you've got to write an episode, so from first word to completion? How long did that take?
Well, back in the day, it was very quick, and probably even quicker now because they've gone to 6 episodes a week. But when I started, it was only 2 episodes a week, and then it went to 3, and then 4. The more episodes it got, the quicker the turnaround had to be. So you were given 2 weeks to write the episode, and it's brutal in the sense that if you're only as good as your last episode, if you like. So if your last episode wasn't any good, you weren't given another one. So it was quite stressful. And then I guess the turnaround then was on the production side, how long it took to make. And I guess that was about a month or 2, as opposed to programs you have now. For example, I'm currently working on Doctors, which is daytime soap, and I've just completed an episode there, and that won't be seen until March 2021.
And did somebody have to put a red pen through some of your scripts, and how did that go down?
Not very well.
Did you have to put your foot down and say, "Hold on a second, that's a really good line. Why are you taking that out?"
Yeah, well, exactly. And I've got to say, give Corrie the due. That didn't happen very often. Corrie was different from every other program I've worked on. Normally, writing a script. I mean, what people don't realise is that what leaves me very rarely ends up as I've sent it off, because basically you're writing for a committee. You've got a script editor, series script editor, producer, series producer, executive producer, and they all want to have a little, tug around and play with things. So it's quite often something leaves you and doesn't end up as you've 100% as you sent it. But on Corrie, that was completely different, because it was the writers were given huge respect on the show, so they were trusted. And usually, once the script left a writer on Corrie, it was more or less accepted. It was like the only show I'd ever worked on where I could write a script and be confident that at the end of it, what appeared on screen would be more or less what I'd written on my laptop. And
did you write the episode for the Commonwealth Games, and Norris was the torchbearer?
Yeah.
That must have been fun.
That was my story, because I'm, obviously an athletics fan. When the Commonwealth Games came to Manchester, that was obviously a big deal. So I pitched the story that Norris would be, or I wanted somehow the show to be involved in the Commonwealth Games, and most people in the creative industry are not particularly interested in sport or athletics, so I couldn't see that anybody was picking this up. So I pitched a story of one of our characters becoming involved in the Commonwealth Games. Obviously, we didn't have any athletes, so I made Norris a volunteer, and the idea was that he would volunteer. He would be accepted as a volunteer for the Commonwealth Games, but being Norris, he would expand the importance of his role back on the street. So he told everybody on the street that he was this, fantastic cog in this Commonwealth Games wheel, and that he was indispensable, and he was very, really, really important and everything. And it transpired that actually he was quite a low-grade volunteer. And in fact, one of the characters on the show now in the story was where they discovered that far from being so important, Norris was simply a car park attendant outside the stadium. And so obviously everybody was sort of taking the mickey out of him. But the story reached its conclusion by Norris wandering along a corridor from his car parking duties, and the gold medal bearer had been taken sick. So suddenly he was plucked from nowhere and was sent out into the stadium to be the gold medal bearer for the person that had won the 1500 metres, who actually was my son, playing the part in that particular episode. And the payoff, the spin-off, was that he was then televised doing this. Meanwhile, back in the Rovers, there was a huge darts match, and I think I can't remember who the character was, had done 180 and done something sort of amazing. The Commonwealth Games, it was on the television, in the Rovers. You could see what was happening live with the presentation. But at the moment that Norris appeared on the screen, a shout of 180 went up the dartboard. Everybody looked away from the screen, so nobody saw Norris as he was shown on the screen, proudly presenting his medal. So nobody ever believed him. That was the story, basically. Yeah.
Great story. Why do you think something like Coronation Street has lasted 60 years when some have come and gone?
Oh, yeah, because they've managed this magical combination of drama and humour. There are some Coronation Street episodes that are funnier than sitcoms. Some of the lines that you see on that you hear and see on Corrie are funnier than anything that you'd ever see on a sitcom. Some of the scenarios are funnier than you'd ever see in the sitcom. The characters are also it's believable. It's character led. All the writers are excellent, of course. But the main thing is the melding of drama and humour, and nobody else has actually got that on TV. No other soaps have come anywhere near it. Things like EastEnders, for example, is all kind of doom and gloom, and people need to have the ability to switch from drama to comedy. So you can have really funny stories. Like Stealing Gnomes from Gardens, which is one of the early ones I remember, down to the really heightened dramatic storylines of death and illness and crime and all the rest. But it's done with a background of with a contrast rather of some really, really funny moments.